Sleep eating and sleeping pills. It's not that uncommon, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to talk about how to reduce the risk of that happening to you after you take a sleeping pill. I'm Dr. Tracey Marks, a psychiatrist, and on this channel I talk about mental health education and self-improvement. Sleep eating is just one example of what we call complex sleep behaviors. Other examples can be things like sleep driving, sleep texting, sleep violence. These behaviors are commonly connected to taking Ambien for sleep, but really it can happen with any of the sleeping medications. So there are four risk factors that can increase the chance that this can happen to you. So number one would be having a history of sleepwalking. And sleepwalking is something that we see more in children, but adults can do it as well. But if you did it as a child, you have a greater risk of this happening again or having you sleepwalk after you take a sleeping aid. Number two would be taking more than the recommended amount, and this is extremely easy to do with Ambien because Ambien will often just stop working on you. I've seen people take it 1 or 2 nights, and then night 3, it's not working anymore. So people will take just a little bit more. So here's the deal with Ambien. There's 2 doses, 5 milligrams and 10 milligrams. It's recommended that women start with 5 milligrams, and men can start with either 5 or 10. About 20% of women metabolize Ambien slower, so therefore that's why the 5 milligram dose is recommended for women. If you metabolize it slower, what can happen is that when you wake up in the morning, you can still have the lingering effects of it. But 20% is still a minority. So there's all these other women and people for whom 5 milligrams just doesn't work. So a person may start off with the 5 milligrams, that may work for a few times, and then they go ahead and take the 10 milligrams. Well, 10 milligrams is the absolute maximum. No one should be taking more than 10 milligrams. But if it stops working, which it often does, so if you take 15 or 20, you increase the risk of these complex sleep behaviors. Now, someone may say, well, it didn't work at 10 milligrams. So how can this make it worse for me when by taking 20 if 20 worked? It's not whether or not it works that gives you the clue as to whether or not you'll have this problem. The drug is still in your system, even if it wasn't effective enough at making you sleep. So you take 20 milligrams, you finally fall asleep, but that's still too much of a dose. Number 3 risk factor is taking too close to the time that you want to get up. It's recommended for most sleeping pills that you give yourself at least 8 hours before you need to drive. So if you need to head out the door at 8 o'clock in the morning, you don't want to take Ambien after midnight. And I've seen it happen many times where someone says, I don't really want to take this pill tonight. I want to see if I can sleep on my own. 2 o'clock in the morning, they're still not asleep, and it's like, I gotta get a few hours of sleep. So they grab an Ambien, or they say, okay, I'll just take half. So they take a little less, thinking, okay, all I need is about 4 or 5 hours of sleep, so I'll just take this little part of the pill. It doesn't work like that. The regular Ambien or Zolpidem works for a certain amount of time, regardless of the absolute dose that you take. So you don't want to take really any sleeping pill that's not designed to be short-acting if it's less than 8 hours before you need to get up and be driving, because you can still wake up and think that you're alert, but still have too much of it in your system. There is an exception with the Ambien thing there's a medication called Intermezzo, is the brand name, but really it's Zolpidem, and it's a short-acting form of it that's designed for middle-of-the-night awakenings so that you really only need to take, you only need 4 hours before you need to be out and about. It's not quite as popular as the regular sleep aids, but that's kind of an exception to this rule of not taking it too close to the time you need to wake up. And then a fourth main factor that can increase your risk of these complex sleep behaviors is taking your sleep aid with other sedating medications. So, for example, if you take benzodiazepines for anxiety or even muscle relaxers, Some of those can be very sedating, and then you add on the sleep agent on top of that. It can just make you to where you can wake up in the middle of the night and not be fully aware that of your surroundings and be doing things in this kind of automatic way that we see with complex sleep behaviors. Another thing that you shouldn't combine the sleep aids with is alcohol. So alcohol is another sedating agent that acts similarly to the sleeping pills in your brain, that is. And so combining those two can also increase your risk of the complex sleep behaviors. Now, if this scares you and you think, well, how do I know if this is going to happen to me? I haven't slept walked as a child and I don't do those other things, but does that mean I'm in the clear? Well, it doesn't necessarily mean you're in the clear. What you want to do, because it could really happen to anyone, it's not like it's super common. I mean, it's kind of common, but it's not like this happens to everyone. What you can do is, if you live with someone or have a bed partner, make sure your bed partner is aware that you're going to take a sleeping pill tonight, and look out for me doing anything weird or moving around in my sleep. If it happens to you, chances are it will continue to happen. So you should let your doctor know, because it's not the kind of thing that generally just kind of goes away. And then also, you never know when you're going to do something that's not great, like driving while you're sleeping. It's one thing to sleep and eat, but sleep driving takes it to a whole nother level. If you live alone and don't have someone to look out for you, one thing you can do is take objects or things that could be dangerous for you to handle while you're asleep. You could put them away. So put your keys in a drawer maybe, or put it somewhere where it's not usually, where you don't usually keep it. Because with these complex sleep behaviors, they're complex in the sense that you're doing something that generally takes some thought, but it is somewhat on autopilot. So putting something in a place that has a key and you've got to go find the key, and you have to remember that you put the key here, that's a little bit too much to perform while you're in this state. It's usually things that are rote, that you've been doing in a fairly routine, and you could just do without thinking much about. So you could hide your keys somewhere that if you're awake, you know where they are, or maybe even lock it away and you know where that key is to get your car keys. Or knives, if you keep your knives in a chopping block somewhere, put it away somewhere where you don't usually have it. And then you could take your sleeping medication and notice whether or not you see plates that have been taken out of the cabinet, or food on the table, or anything that's not in its usual place. And that will give you a clue that you've done something during the night and you weren't aware of it. If this hasn't happened to you, but you know someone for whom it has, share this video with them. And if you like it, click the like button. I'd appreciate it.